Hey everybody, Zach from RW Makes Magic here. Just want to take a second to tell you that the channel is sponsored by Mana Traders. It lets me rent the decks and play all the different formats for the people on the channel, which is tough to do without the help from this. So we really appreciate it from them. But I wanted to let you guys know that we have, Mana Traders has a $15,000 legacy tournament this month, and that's insane. You don't find those prizes anywhere right now. Those are just the biggest prizes you can play for in Magic if you're not, getting God invites to Mythic Invitationals or whatever by Wizards. So for a normal player like me, this is the biggest thing you can play in, and it's a big deal. You do want to be subscribed to Mana Traders. You can't win the actual 15,000 without that. And if you want to sign up, you can use code A22EN at checkout and get a subscription to Mana Traders, be able to rent all the cards you want for Magic Online, and start winning that 15K now.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Making Magic Happen, brought to you by RW Hobbies and Games in Livonia, Michigan. I'm Zach, and today we're going to be talking some Modern. Before we get into that, I just wanted to give a quick heads up on the channel. I took a couple weeks off to just kind of take some time away from the game. Was getting pretty tired of just playing online. Really started to miss paper, and I think that's just a reality of what MTG is going to be like. Well, this COVID pandemic is happening. It's just tough to enjoy it as much as I did during paper. But I'm hopping back into it. I'm finally excited to play online again. So we're going to talk some Modern. Mana Traders this month in December is going to be a Modern tournament. So I'm going to be playing a ton of Modern. I'm actually pretty excited for it, to just start getting into the format, start jamming. And I've played a little bit of Modern the past month. It is not as fun as I would hope. I'm going to be honest. I still like the format. It's still my favorite format to play. But it feels like there's some room for improvement. And I'd like to kind of get into why it is I think that, and what I think is kind of ridiculous about, I guess, parts of the format at the moment. So, if you know me, and you've followed all my content, and up-to-date MTG, on the YouTube channel, stuff like that, I've talked about it. I really think banning Mox Opal, it was right at the time, but now that Astrolabe is also banned, I think that could be unbanned. But I want to talk about another unbanning I think could actually make Modern better right now. And I think this card gets no traction because, honestly, I think people forget it's banned. And I think it could be completely unbanned and be just totally fine. And I'll get into why that is. But before we do, I'm talking about Preordain today. Now, Preordain is actually on the Modern ban list. I know a lot of people probably don't know that because they don't see it there ever. They don't even remember it being in Modern. And that's because Preordain was banned in 2014 or something. 2015. I don't know. It was banned a long time ago. And yeah, at the time when it was banned, we were coming off a format where Storm and Splinter Twin were the best two decks by a lot. And the format was not nearly as powerful as it is today. And when it was banned, it made a lot of sense. It was actually one of the first time Wizards kind of banned the enablers instead of the payoffs, and it was a really good banning at the time. But Magic has gone through a lot of changes in the last 6 years, and 2019-2020 especially has put out some truly heinous and powerful Magic cards, and cards that are just dominating the Modern format. And really, there's a few standout cards from older formats, but honestly, most of Modern is just those cards now, and it's a lot of Modern Horizons. It's a lot of cards printed from the Fires era of Magic design. And then some of just the oldest broken cards, like, Primeval Titan. But honestly, Primeval Titan wouldn't be nearly as good as it is today without all of the help it's gotten recently. I mean, it got Once a Time, which subsequently was banned, but I mean, that was a big kick for the card. It got Field of the Dead, which was huge for it. It got Dryad of the Elysian Grove, which is another pickup. Turn Timber Symbiosis. A lot of things going on with that card that have just... it was always a really good card, don't get me wrong, but, it was a really good card that also got additional cards from 2020, and that's just made it, a powerhouse in the format. And Uro is just an archetype-defining Magic card by itself, but honestly, Uro wouldn't be nearly as good in Modern as it is without, some of the blue stuff that's really helping it from the Fires Design era, like Mystic Sanctuary and Force of Negation, which I actually think Force of Negation is good for the format, but, Uro's kind of dominating it. And then the last, pillar of the format we have right now is red aggressive decks. And they're really one of the few things that isn't getting hugely buffed by the Fires era, although Lava Dart was a really big pickup for these decks. It made the Prowess decks a lot better. And they also have gotten Seasoned Pyromancer, which, not broken, but, the type of refill that a deck like that kind of needs. Companions to some extent. Some of them play Luris, some of them play Obosh. Whatever. I think really it's just how good Prowess is. Prowess is a really good mechanic, and the density of them with Lava Dart has just been really good. So it's weird that one's dominant because it's not really using Fire's Era design cards as much, but still really good deck. But I want to talk about Preordain because Preordain was banned at a time where blue-red combo decks were the best thing to be doing in the format. And when it was banned, it made a ton of sense. Now, in today's Modern, there aren't decks cheating lands with cantrips. There are not Turbo Xerox decks, and there really haven't been in Modern for a long time. There have been points in Modern's history where Turbo Xerox was, a real strategy. And for those who don't know, Turbo Xerox is the idea of playing a very low land count deck with cantrips like Preordain or Opt or Sleight of Hand or Ponder, whatever you want. But basically, ways to cycle through your deck, see a lot of cards so that you have access to a lot of spells all the time, but you don't flood on lands because you only are playing 20 in your deck total. So that's kind of the archetype we're talking about. And honestly, there is an archetype that's kind of close to that in Modern right now, which is the mono-red aggro decks. But they're not Turbo Xerox. They're just decks playing all 1-mana spells and, cheap, small land counts. And they have some cantrips, kind of, where they have, Seasoned Pyromancer or Light Up the Stage or, I don't really see Crash Through, but, it's a card they could play. So those are kind of the spiritual successors of Turbo Xerox decks, but otherwise, they just don't exist in the format. So there aren't really fair decks playing cantrips because the only blue decks in the format are Uro decks. And honestly, playing low land count Uro decks has just been proven wrong repeatedly over time. With every Uro deck you see, the trend with the deck is continuously to add more lands to it and cut more marginal spells and use Uro as your Preordain. The other thing with Preordain was it gave you velocity to help you find stuff. Well, Uro just does all of that by itself. It doesn't need this card. It doesn't do any of that. You just keep putting lands in play, and you let Uro keep drawing you cards, keep finding you more stuff. It doesn't need you to have a spell that helps you locate this stuff. It's going to do everything by itself. So, Preordain not even really helping blue decks at the moment. In fact, cutting lands for Preordain in a 29 land deck, a 29 land Uro deck, is something you absolutely could do. You go down to 25 lands. And Preordain's a powerful card, and I think, there are arguments to do that in an Uro deck, but overall I think it would make the deck worse because more often than not, you're going to miss your drops with Uro. You're going to, cast your Uro, hope to draw that land, put it in play, and just miss it, and, when you do that and you hit a Preordain, it's kind of a disaster. So, realistically, I don't think this is going to help blue decks that much, and the blue decks that it will help are the ones that kind of need the help because they're getting dominated by Uro builds, right? And then in terms of spell-based combo decks, the things that Preordain was really enabling, like Storm or Splinter Twin, which, was more of a creature-based combo deck, but definitely can kind of go under spell-based combo deck too. Those kind of decks that Preordain would help, they don't exist in Modern right now because of how good Force of Negation strategies are against them. But on top of that, it's, Mono Red also happens to be very good against those kind of decks as well, and it's another very dominant archetype. So, just given where the format's at, Preordain's a completely fine unban, and even past all of these things I talked about just being in the format, the other thing Preordain really has happening for it is that the London Mulligan changed Magic, honestly, and it's been over a year now that this has been in place, and I still don't think people fully grasp how much it's changed how cards are evaluated, how people choose to put cards in their decks. And one of the biggest casualties from the London Mulligan is that cantrips are terrible. Just straight cantrips, straight smoothing cantrips that help you find stuff. Like Preordain, for example. Things that say scry, draw a card, or some fashion of that. And that is backed up by, look at this, the commonly played cards overall in Modern. The top overall cards. Veil of Summer is a cantrip, but you don't play it because it's a cantrip. You play it for its, counterspell aspect, and the fact that it is a cantrip is what makes it so good. But you're not playing it because you want 1 green draw a card. You're playing it, as a counterspell. And you're going to find that all of these, like Relic of Progenitus, is a cantrip, but you're not playing it because it's a cantrip. You're playing it because it exiles graveyards. Cleansing Wildfire is a cantrip, but you're not playing it because it's a cantrip. You're playing it because it attacks lands. And every cantrip on this list, all the way down, you play it for some other reason, and then the fact that it's a cantrip comes up, just makes it good enough to play for that reason. Like, okay, Mishra's Bauble is the first one that's a true cantrip, but you're not really playing it because it's a cantrip in Modern. You play it because it either turns on artifacts or because it's makes Lurrus into a card draw engine. It's not really because it's a cantrip. It doesn't really scry. It doesn't really do anything in that. It's just a repeatable card draw source with Lurrus decks. And also it triggers prowess, so some of those decks use it, sure. I get that, but yeah, you're not playing it because it's a cantrip necessarily. Although it is a 0-mana cantrip, and those have historically been pretty good. The first Growth Spiral cantrip, but puts a land into play. Nile Spellbomb cantrip, but graveyard hate really. The first actual cantrip on here, Remand cantrip, but actually you're playing it as a counter spell. It's a stall tactic. Uro, same thing as Growth Spell. The first one on here is Opt, and it is the 41st card played in Modern, and it's the 41st most played card in Modern. And it's only in 10% of decks. 10% of decks play Opt at this point. That's a really small number. There were times before the London Mulligan where Serum Visions was a top 5 played card in Modern. I'm not joking. Like, top 5, top 1. I don't think it was ever above Lightning Bolt, the more I think about it. But easily a top 5 played in card in Modern. And that was for a long time. And honestly, Serum Visions isn't even on the list. I don't see decks play the card anymore. And Opt is better. And if you had to, if I had to guess, is Preordain or Opt better? I would tell you that Preordain is better than Opt. I think that's clear. But it's not significantly better. Honestly, Opt being an instant is a point in its favor. Serum Visions is a sorcery. Or, not Serum Visions, Preordain is a sorcery. Apologies. And, Scry 2, draw a card is definitely better than Scry 1, draw a card. Doubly effective in the scry department, so it sees more cards. It's a better card, but being a sorcery is worse than being an instant. And honestly, Opt is so bad in this format. Like, what decks are playing Opt that if you gave them Preordain, it's like, I don't know, it's not even a huge upgrade. And going back to the London Mulligan, these effects that just kind of give you card selection, just generally in this format, tend to be worse than just mulliganing. Like, using cheap spells to kind of set up your draw and kind of find the thing you're looking for is just worse than just having that card in your hand. And you can just mulligan to it all the time now because you don't get punished by mulligans anymore. So you can just keep looking for them. And given all of those things, I think the argument to unban Preordain is pretty good. You could tell me, well, what are we actually adding to the format? Well, you're helping decks that are really getting hurt by Force Negation right now, which is a big thing. And you're helping Turbo Xerox strategies exist because they don't exist. And they're a strategy people love. Like, go look at Legacy. People love Legacy because Turbo Xerox strategies are fun. It's interesting to play a deck where it feels like you have, a lot of power over your decisions and a lot of power over how the deck plays out, and that your decisions matter, and Turbo Xerox decks always feel like that. And I feel like people would really enjoy them. And I think, given that the strategy is missing, well, maybe it's time to upgrade the ban list. Because, yes, Magic has gone through a ton of changes, And, you know, there were cards banned in 2015, 2014 that really just shouldn't be banned anymore. Let's set them free. Let's see what happens, because I'm kind of getting sick of this modern that's just Euro decks with, you know, Omnath, whatever, red decks with Swiftspear and Soulscar Mage and Primeval Titan decks, and that's all we see right now. Sure, you know, people sometimes play other stuff, but for the most part, Modern's a 3-deck format, and I can't remember a single time in history where Modern was this small. Maybe during Oko, because you could really only play Oko decks. But outside of that, Modern's always had like 15 decks. That was always the beauty of the format. And now that we're down to a 3-deck format, maybe instead of banning stuff, you could certainly argue to ban stuff. I wouldn't be against that. But maybe instead of banning stuff, we should unban some stuff at the moment and see where that takes us. So let me know what you guys think. I am really curious how people would feel about a Preordain unban. I'm going to probably do a few more of these of cards I think could be unbanned, and then maybe do a few on cards that could be banned, because I think that could happen as well. But let me know what you guys think about the Preordain unban specifically. Let me know if you think it would help out the format, and let's see how people feel. But remember, if you like the content we're making here, please subscribe to the channel. Please like the videos. It really helps me continue to make these. It really helps me, keep making these gameplay videos. And if you want to tell me how you feel about Preordain, remember to comment down below. And with that, talk to you next time.
I'm joined by Kyle Balgamase. Welcome, Kyle.
How are you?
Raja Suleiman with Orzhov.
Max McVitie.
Congratulations, Brian DeMars.
Zach Allen.
I wouldn't be here without these guys, though. So.
And the champion of Proto Counter-Attack here, Ari Lax.